It's Thursday, the 10th of June. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I'm your host, Mark Anthony. Today's show is going to be a little different from our usual light-hearted fare. There will be no celebrity birthdays, no fancy graphics, and no musical interludes, and most of the show will be entirely unscripted. The reason for this temporary, or at least I hope it's temporary, and somber change is that yesterday the global demolition industry was rocked by yet another fatal accident that has claimed the lives of at least 9 people. Okay, let's start with what we know so far. At least 9 people have been killed and 8 more have been injured when a 5-storey building collapsed yesterday while undergoing demolition in South Korea. The incident occurred in Gwangju, some 300 odd kilometers southwest of the capital Seoul. Gwangju Fire and Safety Headquarters officials said the fire station had received a report of the collapse, which buried a bus that was driving past the site. As of 8 p.m. local time, a total of 17 people were affected by the incident, said the fire station officials. 9 were confirmed dead and 8 more had been seriously injured and taken to nearby hospitals. All of the dead and injured are thought to have been on the bus. Search efforts are ongoing. Here's an alternative look at just what happened, as I say, yesterday afternoon.
Please be advised this video will contain graphic content. This is not intended for children, nor people who do not wish to see graphic content. A 5-story building being demolished in Gwangju today, June 9, 2021, collapsed onto 2 buses at a bus stop. The building collapsed just after 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and as of 8:40 p.m., 9 people have been confirmed dead as a result of the incident, with at least 8 more hospitalized. Rescue workers are still searching to find more people who may have been walking by or inadvertently in the demolition zone when the building came down. According to workers at the site, an excavator was on the top floor breaking up concrete when it apparently became unsafe. The building was evacuated, but there wasn't enough time to warn the surrounding area. The official cause of the collapse is not yet known as of now. This will surely draw national attention in Korea for the next few days as rescue workers continue to search for survivors, and questions arise as to who was responsible for this and why checks and balances weren't in place to prevent such an accident.
Right, that's the scripted part of the show. From here on, I'm going to be freewheeling and ad-libbing, and I'd like to think we can get some feedback from you guys in the audience. We've already had a few comments. Morning, Gavin. Yeah, absolutely terrible accident. Awful to see. I got a call to say that it has happened yesterday afternoon. Immediately went to YouTube to see if I could find any more news on it, and that was the video that I've just shown. Absolutely terrible. First of all, I guess it's worth saying just why I'm devoting an entire show to an incident that occurred the other side of the world. It's about 9,000 kilometers from here. And the main reason for that is because demolition it's a cliche to say, but it's a global brotherhood. I recall in the immediate aftermath of the Didcot disaster back in 2016, the number of calls and offers of help and assistance that I received from places like Germany and from Italy and from the Netherlands and from Belgium and from France, and then from further afield from the US, a lot from the US, from Australia, from New Zealand. It's an incident that occurred here in the UK, but it was felt across the entire demolition world. And I've made reference to this in the past. Demolition is a universal language. I know we all have our own local accents and dialects and nuances, but I've been lucky enough to sit with or sit in meetings that have had demolition men and women from around the world, and even if they're separated by their native tongue, they will find a common language to speak, and that language is demolition. So when accidents like this happen and when fatalities occur, I think we each feel them just as keenly as if they'd happened in our own country. And I think there's also a feeling of there, but for the grace of God go each of us. I'm not religious, I'm not spiritual, but I think whenever you see something like this, you do think, yeah, the number of demolition sites that I've been on, the number of demolition sites that people that are watching this have been on, and if we're alive to tell the tale, then, as I say, we've been fortunate, and I guess that's one of the things I wanted to touch on today, the fact that when I was writing the initial part of this, I referred to it as yet another accident, because it is yet another accident. It's yet another fatal accident. Whenever I talk about accidents, my memory always goes back to that awful day back in February 2016 with Didcot, but there have been more since, here and overseas. We reported recently on a double fatality over in the States, and they do keep on coming. I think the demolition industry across the world has made some huge strides, some absolutely huge strides in the field of safety, but people are still killed. And I'm never entirely sure. I don't suppose there is a differentiation. Never entirely sure whether it hurts more that it's a demolition worker that's killed or a pedestrian that's killed. I also think it's worth pointing out that what we're talking about here is South Korea. This is not some international backwater that treats its workers as somehow expendable or that considers their life to be worthless. This is South Korea. This is the high-tech home of Samsung, of Hyundai, and of Doosan. We are talking about a very, very advanced country. And before anyone suggests that demolition in foreign countries is somehow automatically less safe, let's not forget Didcot. Let's not overlook the various buildings that have fallen into British streets in recent years. And I can think of many, but because there's a bus involved in this one, my mind immediately went back to one a few years ago in which the end of a building fell off, blew out the site holdings, and threw debris into a neighbouring bus garage. And thankfully, on that occasion, nobody was hurt, but only by sheer good fortune. I've never been to Korea. One day maybe, but I have been to Japan, which is just around the corner, 1,000 kilometers away. And I can tell you that the safety procedures, certainly in Japan, are as good, if not better, than they are here in the UK. So this is not This really is not a case of foreign countries just not doing the job properly. This is a tragic accident. Not sure who our LinkedIn user is, but yes, you're absolutely right. It is a shocking accident. Morning, Peter. Let's have a look. I'm going to get back to the story in a second. Now, let's have a look. This is the one that I wanted to pull out for the time being. If you remember rightly, we had a scaffold collapse here in Reading. I think it was 2019. If I go on for long enough, I may have a chance to check. Thankfully, in that incident, nobody was hurt, but I knew the site, I knew the road, and basically scaffold failed to withstand the impact of what was going on behind, the demolition that was going on behind, and debris fell into the street. And the street itself is the approach to Reading Station, which is incredibly busy. So the fact that nobody was injured is something of a miracle in itself. In the immediate aftermath of that, we were contacted by a demolition engineer who chose, rightly I think, to remain anonymous, who wrote a report on exactly what he considered had happened at Reading. There were lots of findings in that, and you can find it all over on demolitionnews.com. But one of the things that really stood out, and it sprang immediately to mind when I was watching the footage from Gwangju. There is a reluctance, certainly here in the UK, and I don't know if this is the case in South Korea, but there is a reluctance here in the UK to close roads because of the inconvenience that it might cause to pedestrians and road users and that kind of thing. The suggestion after Reading was that if the demolition contractor had been more forceful and had said, no, we're going to close the road, but we're going to close the road over a weekend, 48 hours, like they do with the demolition of a bridge over a motorway or something similar, and just push the entire building back in, away from the road, and then spend the next few weeks or the next few months processing the debris. Yes, there would be a very temporary inconvenience, as I say, 24 or 48 hours while that building was being pushed in, but it's pushing it away from a road. And now when you look at what's happened in Gwangju and the fact that a company was demolishing or was required to demolish a building, a 5-storey building, right beside what looked to be a very busy street, right beside what was clearly a bus route. And this is what has happened. Now, as I say, I don't know the rules and regulations of demolition in South Korea, and certainly not in Gwangju. I'd have to look very hard on a map to find out exactly where it was. But the fact remains, if that building had, as I say, if somebody had taken charge of that, pushed the whole building back away from the road, and even if that meant that they spent twice as long actually processing the debris, everybody stays safe. There was a suggestion in the second film there that there was an excavator working on the roof of the building when it collapsed. I've watched and rewatched that video of the building actually landing in the road, and as far as I can tell, that wasn't the case, although there may be alternative footage that will come to light over the next few days or the next few weeks as the process continues. Now, one of the things that I bang on about a lot is accident investigations. I wrote recently about the marked difference between accident investigations in the US and the UK. I'm going to do this completely from memory, but if memory serves me rightly, a power station collapse in the US was investigated, prosecuted, and case closed within 17 months. That was the Killen Power Plant in Ohio. Here in the UK, after Didcot, we're nearly 5.5 years on. No investigation conclusions, no prosecutions, no closure, either in legal terms or for the families. So it will be interesting to see just how quickly the South Korean authorities investigate what has clearly been a major tragedy on the other side of the world. We are getting a few comments here. You're absolutely right. As I say, let's have a look. They do take their business very safely. They're very seriously. As I say, I can't draw on personal experience because I've not been there, but certainly my experience while I was in Japan, the safety regulations and protocols there were so incredibly rigorous, that there was quite a lot that we could learn from the Japanese. You know, whereas here, to this day, I still think that PPE, personal protective equipment, is something of a hit and miss affair. You see some people still without PPE. You still see people without hard hats. You see people with tatty old high vis vests that aren't particularly visible because they're covered in grease and mud and dirt. In Japan, that wasn't the case. Everybody has pristine PPE, and I do mean absolutely everybody. And even things like the hard hats all have chin straps because hard hats do fall off. Not only do they fall off, but if you're wearing a chin strap, that means you can't wear a hoodie or a baseball cap or a woolly hat or a beanie hat underneath, which, let's face it, kind of negates the idea of a hard hat in the first place. So I would say that certain parts of Asia are quite possibly ahead of where we are here in Western Europe. So that really, I don't believe that that's been a contributory factor in this accident. But as I say, the accident investigation will make that clear, I'm sure, in the coming days and weeks. Thanks for that, Peter. This is only my second time broadcasting live to LinkedIn, so it's nice to know that the message is going out there and the signal is landed. Our LinkedIn user is a friend of Matt Milloy. Matt used to do our video work here. He's working very closely with the guys at Alford Demolition, but Matt is a very good cameraman and a great mate of mine. We worked together for a number of years. All of which, I guess, brings us to, is there a conclusion? Yeah, I guess there is. And the conclusion, I think, is this. To this day, I still receive calls and emails and social media messages from around the world about Didcot, the Didcot disaster, and about the families of the 4 men that lost their lives back in February 2016, and about the company that was involved in it. When I was in Japan 2 years ago, when I was last in the US, which was last year, Didcot remains a key topic of conversation almost 5.5 years later. The 23rd of February 2016 is a date that lives on in demolition industry infamy. Gwangju will unquestionably be the same. The 9th of June 2021 will be the same. That building might have fallen on South Korean soil, but the reverberations will be felt around the world by the global demolition brotherhood. Not really much more I can say about that. We will be back with our usual show tomorrow, which hopefully will be a little more upbeat, because there is a lot of positivity in the industry at the moment. But I do think it was worth taking some time to look at this tragic accident that's happened in Gwangju. I always sign off with the same message, and that is, stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Having seen what we've all just seen in Korea, in South Korea, please stay safe. We are still working in and around what remains a hazardous and potentially deadly industry. So please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues, and I will see you again tomorrow. Thanks very much for watching.